Black Americans should celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. Not quietly, not reluctantly, not with our heads down, and not as if we need permission from anybody. We should celebrate it with our heads up and our eyes open and our history fully intact and our place in this country fully understood. Now, I know what somebody's going to say. How can black people celebrate America when America had slavery? I know. Well, the answer is simple. Because slavery is not the end of our story. And it is not the sum total of the American story either. If the only thing that you can see when you look at this country is its sin, then you're not seeing the entire picture. And if the only thing that you can see when you look at black history in America is victimhood, then you are insulting generations of black men and women who fought, built, preached, taught, served, invented, sacrificed, endured, overcame, and helped make this country better than it was. Now, celebrating America does not require lying about America. It doesn't require pretending that 1776 was perfect. It doesn't require forgetting slavery or Jim Crow, segregation, discrimination, or long, hard roads that black Americans had to walk in this country, but it does require telling the truth about what happened after that. Okay? It requires telling the truth about a people who were brought here in chains and helped build a civilization. It requires telling the truth about a people who were denied the promise of the Declaration of Independence and yet held America accountable to that very promise. It requires telling the truth about a people who didn't abandon the words, all men are created equal, but demanded that America finally live up to those words. That's why black Americans should celebrate the 250th anniversary. Because this country is not somebody else's inheritance, but it's ours. From the very beginning, black people were present in the American story. Crispus Attucks, a man of African and Native descent, is remembered as one of the first to fall in the Boston Massacre. Black patriots fought in the Revolutionary War. There was black labor, courage, faith, culture, families, churches, and black communities were part of America's formation, even when America refused to fully recognize them. And that is exactly why we shouldn't let anybody tell us that celebrating America belongs to only one group of people. There's a dangerous message being pushed today, especially at our young black Americans. It's saying America is not yours. It says that the flag is not yours. It says the 4th of July is not yours. It says that patriotism is somehow betrayal. It says that if you love this country, you are ignoring your ancestors. Well, no. No. Absolutely not. That's completely backwards. Loving this country can be an act of honoring our ancestors because many of them loved a country that did not love them back. They believed in the promise before the promise was fully applied. We call that faith. They believed that America's founding words were powerful enough to condemn America's founding failures. They did not need America to be perfect before they claimed their place in it. They didn't wait for a permission slip from the culture, the government, media, or some college professor. They stood up and said, if America says liberty is true, then liberty must be true for us too. That's not weakness. That's moral clarity. So when Frederick Douglass confronted America, he did not do it because he thought America's founding principles were worthless. No, he did it because he knew that they were powerful. So when abolitionists argued against slavery, they did not need to throw away the Declaration. They used the Declaration as an indictment against the hypocrisy of slavery. When Black Americans fought in uniform, built churches, started schools, opened businesses, raised families, and demanded equal treatment under the law, they were not saying America's ideas were trash. They were saying that the American idea was true, and America had better start acting like it. Because that's the difference between correction and destruction. That is the difference between patriotism and resentment. A patriot can say, this country has done wrong, but this country is worth saving. A cynic can say, however, this country has done wrong, therefore this country is illegitimate. The second view is not wisdom, it's poison. And is especially poisonous when it teaches Black children that they are strangers in a land that their ancestors helped build. Black Americans should celebrate the 250th anniversary because our history is not just a history of suffering. It's a history of victory. It's a history of families formed under pressure like diamonds. It's a story of churches that became schools and shelters, organizing centers, spiritual anchors, and the story of men and women who learned to read when reading was forbidden. It's a story of soldiers who fought for a nation that still denied them free rights. It's a story of entrepreneurs who built businesses when doors were slammed in their faces. It's a story of teachers and preachers and farmers and musicians and inventors, lawyers, doctors, athletes, parents, and ordinary folks who refused to be erased. And here's something else that's got to be said. Black Americans have had more influence on American culture than almost any group in this country. You can't tell the story of American music without Black Americans. You can't. You can't tell the story of gospel, blues, jazz, rock and roll, soul, R&B, hip-hop, or the sound of American worship without Black Americans. You cannot tell the story of American sports without Black Americans. You can't tell the story of American politics, law, literature, education, military service, civil rights without Black Americans. So why would we stand outside the celebration like guests, servants, waiting to be invited? Because we're not guests and we're not servants. We're family. Moreover, we're owners in this national story. And ownership matters. Because when you own something, you don't burn it down because it needs repair. You fix it. When your house has a broken window, you don't say, well, this house was never mine anyway. You fix the window. You protect the house. You make it better for your kids. That's how Black Americans have approached this country at our best. We have fought to make America more faithful to its own creed. We don't need to invent some new set of principles to replace American founding. We have demanded that the founding principles be applied honestly, and that in itself is worth celebrating. The 250th anniversary should not be a shallow fireworks and hot dog moment. It should be a national memory test. Do we remember what America is? Do we know? Do we remember what made this nation different? Do we remember that our rights come from God, not from government? Did you hear what I said? Do we remember that our rights come from God, not from government? Do we remember that liberty is not granted by politicians? And equality under the law is not a gift from bureaucrats. Do we remember that this country, flawed as it's been, created space for correction, reform, revival, and renewal? This is one of the great miracles of America. This nation has the capacity to be confronted by its own principles. This is why slavery could be condemned in the language of the Declaration. This is why segregation could be challenged under the Constitution. That's why churches could thunder from the pulpit that every man and woman bears the image of God. That is why ordinary citizens like you and I can organize, speak, march, vote, build, sue, preach, teach, and demand justice. Because in many places around the world, if you challenge the government, poof, disappear. In America, The struggle has often been bitter and costly, but the tools of liberty did exist. Speech, faith, assembly, courts, ballots, the Constitution, all tools that Black Americans used, sharpened those tools, and forced the nation to take them seriously. So as we reach our 250th birthday, Black Americans should not approach the anniversary as if it belonged to somebody else. We should stand right in the middle of it and say, we're here. We built here. We bled here. We prayed here. We served here. We changed here, and we are still here. Now, that doesn't mean that we ignore the past. It means that we refuse to let the worst parts of the past control the future. It means that we reject the industry of grievance that profits from keeping people angry, divided, spiritually exhausted. And it means that we teach our kids that we are not permanent victims trapped in a hostile land. They're heirs to a hard-won inheritance. Your kids are Americans. They're free citizens. They have responsibilities. They have opportunities. They have a country worth defending and a history worth knowing. And now, for some of y'all, as for you Black Christians especially, there's a whole other layer here. We know that human beings are fallen. We know that nations are imperfect. And we also know history is full of sin because people are sinners. But we also know that redemption is real. We know that courage is real. We know that truth is real. We know that God can bring beauty from suffering and strength from trial. The Black American story is not only a political story, it's a spiritual story. It's a testimony. That testimony says, you tried to break us, and we're still here. You tried to deny us, but we're still here. You tried to write us out, but we're still here. And not only are we still here, we help build the greatest nation in the history of the world. So yes, Black Americans should celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States. We should celebrate it honestly. We should celebrate it with gratitude. We should celebrate it with memory. We should celebrate it with our ancestors in mind and our children in view. We should celebrate it not because America has always been right, but the American promise gave us the ground to demand what was right. This country is ours too. The flag is ours too. The founding promise, ours too. The future is ours too. And anyone trying to convince Black Americans to hate America is not liberating us. They're trying to separate us from our own inheritance. Remember, the 250th, tell the whole story. Thank God for the victories. Remember the sacrifices. Teach the children the truth, and then get back to the work of making America stronger, freer, wiser, and more faithful than she was before. Happy Independence Day from everybody here at Fightback Media.